Yeah, I have an unusual job in the corporate world. I get to go around and meet startups and go to tech labs and report that up on Facebook and YouTube and Twitter and that kind of thing. Last week I was at MIT Media Lab. Anybody graduate from MIT here? That's a cool place, by the way. I could spend a couple months there. And what this talk sort of is a fire hose of stuff I've seen around the industry. It's sort of a continuation of a book I wrote with Shel Israel called Age of Context. And it's a trend called Frictionless, which we'll get into in a second. This, by the way, is Daniel Brusilowski. He works at the Golden State Warriors in the innovation department there. And he's trying out a virtual reality set at the Indy race last Sunday, which shows you a little bit about how marketing is changing. But let's jump in. You know, whenever somebody approaches the industry, they usually come at it with some assumptions, and many of the assumptions are based on talking with people like you, knowing that the amount of bandwidth is going up exponentially, or knowing that smartphone usage is going up. You know, today alone, 1 million people in India are going to buy a smartphone for the first time. And that's something mind-blowing, right? But you start understanding some of the baseline assumptions, and some of those assumptions mean that things are possible today that just weren't even a few years ago. Here I ran an event with Cisco that did, we had people calling in on video conferencing and people watching virtually. So instead of having to meet in a room like this, we all met on the internet. And yeah, that was possible a few years ago, but it just wasn't good. And now the video is so good, it's like sitting next to you in the best situations. It's still not that way consistently, but it's getting there. And when I go around the world, I started seeing that two kinds of companies are really starting to rock and roll. Ones that either remove friction from our lives, or ones that bring us extraordinary new experiences. Virtual reality would be the extreme example of that. So when I say frictionless, I'm talking about things that are removing friction from our lives. Like Sprig, if you're in San Francisco, you can pull out your mobile phone and have a salad delivered to you in 20 minutes for about $10, right? That removed a lot of friction. I don't have to go to some place, stand in line, wait for my salad and eat it there. I can have it delivered right to my mobile phone. And this is changing what we believe about ourselves. You know, when my dad moved to Silicon Valley in 1971, he did not want to live in the downtown. The downtown was where the poverty was, where the poor services were, where the bad schools were, where the crime was. And now we're starting to, you know, my son who's 21, wants to live downtown. Why? Because he has more services like Sprig, like Uber, like Instacart. He can get groceries delivered to his house. I can't. I live here in Half Moon Bay, which is a rural community of about 13,000 people. A lot of these services haven't gotten here yet because the population density isn't high enough to profitably offer these services. So we're starting to think about where we should live differently, right? We call it the new urbanist in our book. You know, when I talk to marketing people, I said, well, okay, this is the bleeding edge of virtual reality today. And you guys have all been in labs building things that look nerdy like this. You know, I remember seeing Wi-Fi radios that were this big, right? Over here at Broadcom, and now they're a little piece of your fingernail. And today, this is what the bleeding edge is. And we need to turn these experiments into products that people will line up around the block for. So we started thinking about what today's technology lets us do. You know, Uber is an interesting company. It's a delivery service that doesn't own a car, right? The car, by the way, is the same as it used to be. The driver's the same. The driver gets paid the same way. It's just what has changed about Uber. It's that we put data on top of that car. And the data makes us think that it's a completely different experience, right? Because it removed friction from us and it brought us a new experience to our mobile phones. We get to see where the driver's coming toward us. We get to get out of the car and not have to hand the driver some payments. We get to rate the driver, and the driver gets to rate us. All data, all databases, but has transformed what we think of, and now is one of the fastest growing, well, is the fastest growing startup of all time. In our book, we identified 5 forces that are bringing us these new kinds of technologies. And here's a sensor in a parking lot over by Palace of Fine Arts that senses whether there's a car there or not. So sensors is the first force. The amount of sensors around us, on us, in our world is going up exponentially to the point where we have 8 of them on our phone, and many of us have Apple Watches or Android watches that have sensors on them. At MIT Media Lab last week, they showed me a new light bulb that has, 15 sensors on it. That's going to replace each one of these lights and is going to study our world. If you go to Levi Stadium across the hills, they have 2,000 beacons, 1,200 Wi-Fi hotspots, and dozens of sensors to the point where they can tell you where the shortest bathroom line is in the stadium, stuff like that, right? Yeah, seriously. Super Bowl is going to be pretty cool there. My desk has sensors. This baby bottle has sensors, and on and on. The second force is the number of wearables on us. The amount of computers on us is going up exponentially. Last week, I saw a bunch of things developed at the same lab where Google Glass was developed 20 years ago. It still hasn't shipped, but it's coming. This guy started Recon Instruments. Recon Instruments makes a little computer that's inside the Oakley Airwave ski goggle. The ski goggle shows you where on the mountain you are, how fast you're going, what the hang time of your last jump was. In my case, that's an accident. I don't necessarily want to jump off anything when I'm skiing. But, and it shows you where your kids are, as long as your kids have an iPhone or an Android phone in their pocket, on and on. This is Epiphany Eyewear, which got bought by Snapchat and taken off the market, so we're going to find out what those 2 kids are up to now. But they built a video camera for inside an eyeglass frame, and you can imagine what Snapchat might use that for in the future. The third force is the amount of data about where we are is going up exponentially. Facebook, if you look up this room, tells you a whole bunch of stuff. 10 years ago, there was no database like that about this hotel, right? Foursquare and Yelp and Google all have data about this hotel, and the amount of data is going up exponentially, which is an important thing. Yeah, there's Jeremiah. Yeah, using Facebook nearby friends feature, which I'll talk about in a second when we want to freak you out about privacy. Social data is going up exponentially. Twitter is at 500 million tweets a day right now and going up. WeChat makes that look small. And Facebook, I think, is 4 million posts a day right now, and that's an old number. So these numbers are going up exponentially, and that lets us build new kinds of companies on top of these, and we'll talk about a few of them. And you guys know this world really well. The amount of cloud-connected data is going up exponentially. And all sorts of new databases have popped out in the last 7 or 8 years, from DataSift, which just deals with the Firehose feeds from Facebook and Twitter, to Hadoop, to Mongo. And the structure of the data center is changing, right? It used to be a hard drive, and we would have to wait for that hard drive to spin to pull some bits off of it. Now we're building data centers all with a flash memory. So now that we're getting this new kind of contextual operating system, and the book came out of talking to guys at Google because they had a contextual operating system team, and they are continuing to think about this in a deep way. Google Now is a great example of this. Now that we have this possibility of these 5 things converging together, we're starting to be asked to change our businesses. One, we're asked to change our business to study everything about everything. If you get a tour of the Levi Stadium, my wife and I got a backstage tour from the geek who built all the systems. My wife said, "Man, this is 1984." She said, this is 1984, but for a football stadium. These guys know where you parked. They know where you are in the world when you bought your ticket, They know where you are in the stadium. They know the minute you walk through a turnstile and flash your phone there. In fact, they're building a system that you don't even have to flash your phone. Your beacon in your phone will talk to a system as you enter the stadium. And by the way, they bought a brand new 4K screen right at the entrance of the stadium, and they're going to put your name up there. Think about that. Welcome to Levi Stadium, Joe Smith, right? And they are studying everything about everything. They want to know how many hot dogs per minute are selling, where they're selling, who's buying them, all sorts of stuff, right? And every business is going to be asked to do the same thing. If you think you're not, you're not studying the world very well, right? The other thing, the other imperative that I'm seeing is we're being asked to understand our customers in far more detail. That screen at the front of Levi Stadium is a good example of that. We're going to be asked to know who is walking into the stadium and what are your attributes? What kinds of things do you like to do? You know, what beer do you drink every time you come to the stadium? What do you drink? Do you eat a hot dog or a hamburger? What kind of music do you like? On and on and on. Because I can make your experience better if I know that, right? I interviewed the executive team at the Ritz and hung out with them. And the Ritz is a hotel that is known for having the best customer service in the world, right? Whether they do anymore or not is up in question, but they have that reputation. And they said, you know, 100 years ago, whenever the Ritz started back in the 1800s, the hotel had a room with index cards in it. And every time you went to the Ritz, they would pull out your index card and write down stuff. They would go through your trash. This was 150 years ago or 100 whatever years ago. They would go through your trash and see if you threw away an apple or if you threw away a candy wrapper or a box from a candy store or something like that. And they would have an apple on your pillow the next time you came. And they would have your favorite candy on your pillow the next time you came. This was before computers, before technology. They surveilled the hell out of you to give you better service. And he says, we lost track of that in the last 50 years or so. But it's coming back. We can track you now. We can understand you. And they are going to do it, just like the 49er Stadium's doing it. Some things up here. eBay showed me a new retail screen at CES a couple years ago that has 3D sensors. You turn around in front of the screen, it knows your body type to plus or minus, or body shape plus or minus a quarter inch. So they can make custom clothes for you. They are watching, where are you looking and what are you poking at on this screen? And they can study your phone because your phone has a beacon in it. So as you walk up to the screen, it can do all sorts of fun stuff to it, right? This is Paloma Faye. She's a famous music singer in UK. This is Christy Wells. She started the social media club. She clicked like on Paloma's Facebook page, and now Paloma uses a system called Audience FM to know stuff about her audience, right? And know all sorts of stuff thanks to Facebook. The glasses over here are Copen screens. They make little screens for military glasses, but the screen is half the size of the one in the Google Glass, and it's sharper and brighter. So, and this is 2 years old already. So Moore's Law is clicking along. We just don't see it yet because it's clicking along in some R&D lab somewhere. But someday we're going to see really remarkable products that are going to let me look at you and know stuff about you because you're near me, right? Let's talk about some of the retail innovations that are going on, clicking along. This is a company in Brazil called Shop Perception. They put a 3D sensor over you in a shopping aisle. This sensor is made by PrimeSense that Apple now owns. This is 2 years old also. It's so sensitive it can tell when you touch a box of Cheerios and that you touched a box of Cheerios and not Special K, right? And as soon as you pull that box of Cheerios off, the screen over here says, hey, you just bought a box of Cheerios. Why don't you buy 3 of them? You get 10 loyalty points, right? It knows what you're touching in the store. It's pretty crazy. Freaky technology's coming. Now, they swore up and down, oh, we're not doing face detection, we're not looking at your privacy and all this stuff, we're just doing it to study shopping behavior in stores and stuff like that. But it doesn't take a rocket scientist to know that in a few years, we're gonna get used to it and we're gonna see smart grocery stores. In fact, I spoke at a privacy conference, and one of the hour-long sessions was an argument. What do you put on the front of a smart store to warn people they're being studied? Like it's studied hardcore. The thing in the middle is a shelf box. They won Demo God of the Year 18 months ago. And you touch your phone on one of their displays, and then your phone gets coupons about that display. So if you're in the cookie aisle at a grocery store, you touch your phone on one of their things. It has 9 radios on it, so it knows that you touched it. And it communicates all sorts of stuff about where you are. The truth is, it doesn't need to be touched with a modern phone. As soon as you walk by it, it knows you walked by it, right? Vintank is a company up here in Sonoma. They study anytime you say something about wine on social media. They're seeing 2.5 million tweets a day right now about wine. They're putting geofences around all the wineries. So if you go up to Napa and want to go to the wineries and you tweet from, let's talk about a scenario. Let's say you go to Camus and you tweet, I just bought a case of Camus's Best. And then you come into my place, maybe I own Paradox, right? Just by one tweet, I know that you're in the upper middle class or above, and that you're a very discerning wine customer, because you're not gonna buy a case of Camus unless you are in both of those things, because it's $100 a bottle, and if you can't tell the difference between wine, you're not gonna buy a $100 bottle of wine, right? So you come into my place, I'm gonna take you straight to the reserve room, because I'm gonna try to maximize my profit on you. Now, if you, sir, go to Sutter Home and say the same thing, well, now I know you're not discerning, and you might not be able to afford a $100 bottle of wine. One of those two things. Either way, I'm not going to take you to my reserve room, right? Because I'm going to start out with the cheaper wines that I offer and see if you bite on those, and maybe ask you some different questions. This is already happening. This is a company that's already been bought. It's off the market. It's already happening. These are old things. So let's talk about some of the technologies that are going on. We talked about beacons. Levi Stadium has 2,000 of these things around the stadium. These are little radios that spit 3 numbers into the air. They cost about $10 at wholesale, maybe less if you buy a bunch of them. They last about 2 years on a coin battery. Anybody have one on them? I ask this question every time. Few people do. I think I have one on my, what's that?
Not that we know of.
Oh, yes, you do. Anybody have an iPhone? Yeah, every iPhone has one of these radios in it. Yeah, you didn't know that, did you? Everyone has a little beacon in it. So Coachella and the Levi Stadium is going to put an app. You're going to load the Levi Stadium app on your phone, and it's going to say, hey, can you turn on Bluetooth? And all of a sudden, it's going to know where you are and who you are, because you're going to be broadcasting those 3 numbers to receivers that can receive it around the stadium. And the stadium has 2,000 of these transmitters. So your phone knows exactly where it is in the stadium, right? That's why they put 2,000 of those around the stadium. And somebody, at a recent talk, somebody said, I'm turning that shit off, right? And I said, no, you won't. You won't get in the stadium if you turn it off. And okay, you can print out a ticket. Okay, you can get in the stadium that way. But you want to find out where the bathroom is that has the shortest line? You're going to turn it back on. You want a hot dog delivered to your seat? You're going to turn it back on. Right? On and on and on. Anyways, yeah. Beacons. In terms of context and how important this stuff is, when we talk about a self-driving car, the little LiDAR on top of it, the Velodyne LiDAR is spinning 80 lasers around. And the lasers can only see about 100 meters, 100 yards in front of it. And it gets less and less resolution as it gets further, because it's a laser bouncing off of you and coming back. And Google's driving these around trying to see humans on the street and trying to build predictive software about what is that human gonna do? What is that bike driver that's in the bike lane? What is she gonna do? Is she gonna pull in front of the car? Is she gonna take a right turn? Is she gonna keep going straight? And it's building a predictive model of that. It's also watching your hands. So here's my former producer, Rocky, waving his hand, and the laser sees that, and the computer is identifying what is he trying to tell the car, right? Because if we drive as humans and we see somebody going like this, we're gonna slow down and know that there's maybe something dangerous coming up ahead, right? Or if we see a police officer going like this, we know that the police officer wants us to go through the light and proceed. So the car has to get smart like that. But the car can only see 100 meters, so it needs predictive software to see further ahead. It needs contextual software. And what do you think Waze is doing, right? How many people use Waze? Yeah, so Francine's a mile ahead of me. She sees a ladder in the road. She reports it. All of a sudden, my car gets a warning, ladder in the or object in the road, slow down, right? Right? But that makes the car smarter because the car will do the same thing. We'll slow down going into dead stop traffic or a ladder in the road or other things and be able to get smarter about what to do going in the future. So, yeah, that's why they bought Waze. That's why they bought Waze. You know? Because it makes the car smarter, right? Yeah. By the way, little Silicon Valley trivia. What did Velodyne build before the LiDAR? Dave Hall is the CEO of Velodyne. He built subwoofers. If you have, anybody have a Velodyne subwoofer? Yeah, he's down here in Milpitas, or in south of San Jose. Made Velodyne subwoofers. Moved his manufacturing to China, had an empty warehouse and said, what else do I do? Comes up with self-driving, with LiDARs. Frictionless and contextual technology is bringing us better health, and Francine's actually one of the world's authorities on what the health industry is doing with all this stuff. But we're soon gonna have pills that we eat that study our innards. Over here, I went to an R&D lab in Ireland, and they showed me silicon-based needles that feel like sandpaper when you put your finger on them, and they pull a few cells of blood out. So if you're a diabetic, I would far prefer those than the old method of pricking my finger every couple hours to see my blood sugar level. Lively is an Internet of Things company. They've saved a couple lives. They're for people who have elderly parents that want to remain on their own. So you put a sensor on your parent's pill bottle, a sensor on your parent's refrigerator door, and a sensor on their front door. And it only warns you on your mobile phone if they have not touched one of those sensors, which means they haven't gotten out of bed, right? Because if they've gotten out of bed, then they've touched the front door, or they've touched the refrigerator, or they've taken their pills. And it's already saved a few lives, 2 lives already that I know of, and that's already old data too. And we're seeing a whole bunch of stuff coming in health. Big data and cloud. Yeah, so if you go to Coupa Cafe over the hill in Palo Alto, they are using an app called Downtown. They let you order right from your table, and you can say, bring me in a latte right to my table. The old method was I had to get up from my table and wait in line until I got to the cashier and said, hey, can I have a nice latte? And then they took my money, right? This thing is like Uber. It takes the money automatically, and she just brings it to your table because there's a beacon on top of the table, so it knows you're sitting at table 13, and so and there's an iPad sitting in the kitchen which gets the orders and lights up and beeps, and if they don't answer the order in less than 2 minutes, it even calls the restaurant and says, hey, why aren't you looking at your iPad? There's money waiting for you, to make sure that the customer service remains high. And the first week they put this thing in place, they increased sales 20. And up to date, I just met the CEO a couple weeks ago, and he said it's 35% now. So Topingo's company I named Company of the Year 2 years ago, and I predict none of you have used it, right? Why haven't you used it? because it's for college kids. It's like Facebook, only for college kids right now. 150 universities use this. The college kids buy everything on it. So the college kids wake up at Santa Clara University at 7 a.m. and say, I want an iced latte. They put the order in. It comes back and says your iced latte will be ready at 7:29 a.m. because it put you into a virtual queue. You go in and pick up the latte. You don't talk to anybody. You don't touch anything. You don't pass them a credit card. You leave. It knows you picked it up because of beacons again and GPS. And who's going to steal a latte anyways? If they do, you're caught on security camera. It's like Apple Store, right? Did you know you can do this at an Apple Store with the Apple app? If you want to buy a power supply, you just say, I want to buy a power supply. You go pick up the power supply and leave. You don't have to stop. Yeah. Yeah. It's, you walk out. No problem. They won't stop you. Yeah. Now, it only works for stuff that doesn't have a serial number. So power supplies, stuff like that.
It works for stuff that have smartphones.
Yeah. So this kid is pretty smart. It's Daniel. He was in Israel's surveillance top secret 8200 program. His dad started Zoran, so he's already rich enough that he doesn't care about making short-term money and getting a bill paid. His system now asks you, would you like it delivered to your class? And if you say yes, a kid who is already at the Starbucks will pick up your latte for you and take it to your class for you and get paid not in dollars, but in a virtual currency that Topingo is controlling, similar to Bitcoin. He did that because he doesn't want to pay Visa the 2% fee for getting cash in and out of Visa. And he's building his own monetary system. So think about when we get it in 5 years. The other thing is he has a box inside the restaurant. So each restaurant only can take one box. They can't take two because it would fuck up the workflow of the restaurant, right? So he's going to have a monopoly on things around college campuses forever. And he already has 70% of all the transactions at Santa Clara University. And when we get it, we are going to be the same. We are going to be putting 70% of our transactions into this thing almost immediately because it's going to save us so much time, and we're going to get things delivered for us, and we're going to not have to wait in line at the Starbucks to get our lattes. Similar company just today got funded $6 billion. It's called House Call. It's out of San Diego. If you need a roofer, a plumber, a maid, a beautician to come to your house, a back rub, whatever you need in your house. You pull this thing out, you click on, I need a plumber, I got a bad sink. It tells you a common price. The reviews are only written by other customers, so no funny business like on Yelp. And when you order this, you get scheduled through the system. You pay through this system, and you see when the driver is coming to your house just like Uber. It takes friction away from your system. So you know when to put your pants on and answer the... You'll know when the driver's about to get you... Or when, yeah, if you're, you know, Francine, I don't know. But when they showed this to me, I said, okay, how many customers you got? And he goes, oh, let me pull up the back-end system. And all of San Diego was completely red with little dots of their customers. And I said, how the hell did you get so many customers that I didn't even know anything about you? And he goes, because we have the best plumbing scheduling system, and the plumbers are forcing their customers to get it, to get paid, and to interact with their customers, and improve their customers' lives. And so they're just taking over like a virus as well. So that's another business that's reducing friction and killing it. You know, we're seeing all sorts of new computer vision technologies. A friend of mine is starting a company, or just, yeah, starting a company that will digitized paper via a robot. The robot sees the staples through machine learning, machine vision systems. And this Y Combinator company did the same thing. They bought 4 little cheap cameras, and they wrote a lot of software that when you pass a bag of Doritos underneath the cameras, it sees what size Dorito, what brand Dorito, and charges you appropriately. And I tried fooling it. I tried putting like a Dorito and something else, stacked them. It saw them accurately. So it's just like your human eye, right? If it can see all angles, it can see what you're putting underneath it and accurately figure out what it's doing and do a new kind of checkout system. What's that? I don't remember the name. It might have been Mashton. Yeah, I think that was it. I always have to have a 3D printed elephant in the room. Just because. By the way, next week a new 3D printer is coming out, and it's way sharper than the one that printed this thing. So 3D printing is starting to cook along and is going to have, I think, its laser printer moment this month. We're already seeing all sorts of fun robots that are letting us do things like roving teleconferencing. Our businesses are continuing to be forced to think about mobile users. I interviewed Flipkart's head of product recently, and Flipkart is India's #1 e-commerce company, and they're bigger than Amazon or eBay in India. And he said last July, only 15% of their business came through mobile phones, and today 70% of their business comes through mobile phones. So their world is flipping so fast that everybody's continuing to be forced to think about that. Now we're going to have some fun. So that was just sort of lead into the fun stuff that's coming. So this is the guy who runs Meta. Meta is over the hill here. They're making an augmented reality glass that has 2 screens in it. You look through those screens and you see the real world, so it lays virtual images on top of the real world. A similar system is ODG, which is over here in San Francisco. They've been making these things for military for 10 years. You don't even know their name. They have a full-on fab right across the street from the ballpark, which is sort of funny, right? And they make similar glasses that have basically an Android phone in the headset, and you're looking through 2 720p screens. And they designed the patents that were sold to Microsoft, which made the foundation of the HoloLens. So this is their new one, which Ralph, the guy who invented these, also invented the night vision goggle. And he said, when I sold my patents to Microsoft, I started over. I rethought, I started over, and he already has 145 new patents. So in 2 years, he started over, made these, and it has a wider screen, a sharper image, blah, blah, blah. How many people have heard of a company called Magic Leap? Yeah, a few people. Google invested $500 million in this company called Magic Leap, which is going even further than these guys. They're not doing a screen. They're actually finding a way to put laser light into your eye so that a virtual image just appears. And Ted Schilowitz, the futurist for 20th Century Fox, said it is Google's first $1 trillion idea. So somebody over at Google, Larry Page, saw something. And the 5 friends I have who have seen this say it's remarkable. So we're waiting for that. Most of the guesses are 3 to 5 years on the Magic Leap. These are here right now, but they're $2,700. But as Moore's Law kicks along, we're going to get this for everybody, right? Along with virtual, so the biggest thing I think for the Consumer Electronics Show next year is going to be virtual reality. The Oculus, the Sony Morpheus, and the Valve Vive are the most exciting product I've seen since the original iPhone, and maybe even more exciting than that. Everybody who gets a demo of the most recent stuff, which you have to get a lab invite or a demo, it comes out swearing. Every single one. And I'm just so excited about this world. Whether it's going to be mainstream or not, I really don't care. I'm going to buy 2 of them, and I have a feeling you guys will want to come over and play. And I'll have to take them off of you to get you to leave, right? While the headsets are evolving, and all of them are going to ship in the next 6 months, right? The camera companies are going nuts. GoPro's working on 2 new cameras that'll be released first quarter of next year. That'll do 360-degree video for these new headsets. Spiricam is a new company that just got its Kickstarter funding. They're building one with 6 cameras. I think I have a bunch of pictures of different ones. Jaunt is a startup that makes one with 18 cameras. GoPro and Google are working on one that just released last week with 18 or 16 cameras. We're seeing all sorts of new cameras that use mirrors and a single chip that do just a stripe, so they don't do spherical, but they do 360 degrees around. We're seeing innovators who are building 3-chip cameras that are cheaper. This one's going to be $500, and he expects in 5 or 6 years to be able to miniaturize that to be in your cell phone. So think of an iPhone in 5 years or 6 years that has 3 little chips on it and does 360-degree video. We're seeing companies like Blipar. Blipar has made a deal with hundreds of brands. So you take your iPhone or your Android phone and aim it at a box of Lucky Charms, and it animates or does stuff based on that image. And it doesn't need a barcode, it just needs to understand the image. And their new release lets you actually go around and train it on different kinds of images so it can recognize more and more and more things. He's building a visual search engine. So if you think of an age where we have a magic leap on our face and we're walking around, we want it to recognize certain things so that we can ask for more information about those things or get a better deal, or if I see you wearing a shirt, I'm going to soon be able to say, grab that shirt and order it for me from Amazon. Why not? Reverse image search, right? Our new world is freaky. About this time, I asked everybody who's freaked out by this new world, right? And how many people, a third of the hands, I think, went up, right? How many people have an Amazon Echo in their house? Do you like it?
I love it.
Do you like it?
My kids love
it. Your kids love it? Every time I ask people, they all love it. But this thing's listening to you, right? Alexa, what's the weather? Alexa, play Skrillex. Alexa, order some toilet paper. What else do you tell it?
Pre-order my Tide Pods.
My Tide Pods, right? And now Amazon sells a button, a dash button, that you can just click on the Tide button and Tide will show up in 2 days, right?
I know, but I don't want 500 dash buttons in my house.
Yeah.
Easier to talk to Alexa.
Yeah. But it's listening to you. It's listening for the word Alexa, right? Now, most people think it's listening just full on. Even if it was, who cares? We're having fun with this thing, right? And more people are going to get these kind of devices that are going to listen to us all the time. And how many people are wearing an Apple Watch? A few. That thing knows when I'm having sex. Right? It has a heart rate monitor. It has an accelerometer. It has a clock. And it has a beacon in it so it knows it's together. Come on, people. As Tim Cook knows who we're doing it with and how long. And we're going to give more and more of these things, more and more data. I tell the story about TripIt, and I was in a plane coming home from Chicago. So TripIt, I've given TripIt access to my Gmail, right? Think about that for a second. If we had this meeting 20 years ago and some smart-ass nerd in the back stood up and said, in 20 years, you're going to give access to your email to other companies, I would say, fuck no. But today, Concur, which is a public company, has access to my email and can look around for whatever the fuck it wants. And I don't know what it's doing in there. Now, they say it's looking for tickets, plane tickets, and hotels, and Uber receipts and stuff like that. And it takes those out. It also asks me for my credit card. It also asks me for GPS access to my phone so it knows where I am. And so I'm sitting in this plane about to get on the runway. We were actually taxiing out. And because I've interviewed the CEO of TripIt, I know how it works. And it works by being hooked into the information system of the air traffic control system. And he told me if it says your plane's being canceled, it's being canceled. Because the airline system just said you're being canceled. And so it said one night, your flight's being canceled. And I said, that's interesting. And I said, would you like to buy a ticket on one of these other airlines? Click, yes. It bought me a ticket. There was 3 seats left on that other airline. 2 minutes later, the pilot comes on and says, I'm sorry, I've been trying to get this engine started for 20 minutes. We can't get it started. I've been talking to the air traffic control and the maintenance people. We don't have another plane tonight, so we're going back to the gate. So people who say, I'm never using that shit, are gonna sit in Chicago overnight. And they're not gonna get their hot dog delivered to them in the seat at Levi Stadium. And they're not gonna be cool because I'm not gonna see that they're at the bar like my friend Andy is right now over here at the Half Moon Bay Brewing Company, because I can see where he is on Facebook nearby friends. It's a true story, I'll show you. Yes, I know, that's why I used him as an example, but Andy Grignon is here right now, right? And that's the freaky world. We're gonna go into this world here. This is Andy, by the way, since I used him. He's one of the 12 guys who built the first iPhone. He was using a breathometer sensor to study his alcohol usage. That thing reports how drunk he is or not up to a cloud service. The cloud service will then call Uber for him if it so decides. So that's pretty much enough of the future to freak you out and get you talking over drinks tonight. Welcome to my backyard. Thank you very much.
Thank you.